Hi guys, recently I made this fancy schmancy moss grow pole for my Rhaphidophora cryptantha, and I thought it might be something that you guys would be interested in. So the stuff that you'll need to make this moss pole is obviously some sphagnum moss that I have actually pre-soaked in sea salt just because I had it available, some gutter guard, zip ties, and then I've got a pot that I have cut down so that it fits my little pot for the Rhaphidophora in it, and we're good to go. First up, you want to cut your piece of gutter guard so that it's the length that you would like it to be, and also decide on a thickness. I think I'm going to awkwardly go for like a third of the thickness of this, and I'm also going to start with it not overly tall. How tall is this guy? I want it to be a bit taller than that actually is at the moment. Alright. So I'm going to cut two lengths the same. So the gutter guard is like a few bucks from Big W. And it's pretty handy to have around anyway for doing things like this. And then pretty sure I don't want it to be that thick. Nope, I want it to be like 2/3 of that thickness. So let's cut a really wonky line. Oh no. Actually, what I'm going to do is zip tie one side together first. I am so sorry about this video. So one night I saw someone else's moss pole like this and I got really inspired. So it was pretty late at night when I decided to do this. And so I pretty much didn't talk the whole video, and it's probably one of the most boring videos ever. So yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, basically I was just inspired by something that I saw someone else have theirs on. So this isn't my idea, but I did just make it up as I went along. So the next step is to stuff it with sphagnum and hope that it stands up somewhat on its own. Otherwise I'm going to have to put a stick in the middle of it. So in terms of the dampness of the sphagnum for this moss pole in particular, I don't think it really matters if it's overly damp because it's not a big thick moss pole that's going to stay wet for a long period of time, and I have found that this plant really likes it damp. It sits in a tray of water and that water needs topping up every couple of days. I only have like 1 or 2 centimeters of water in the tray, but it's a very thirsty plant and it's really happy. No signs of any root rot so far, touch wood, but I didn't really overly compress the sphagnum to get all the moisture out of it. Just zip tie the other side closed. Originally, I was going to mount this guy on a flat piece of hardwood timber that we had in the garage, but I also wanted to be able to easily cut off cuttings to propagate to swap or maybe sell, I don't know. So that's why I ended up changing to the sphagnum moss, so that the roots grow into the moss and they're more easy to get out without damaging them, rather than being like solidly attached to a piece of timber, but they do like to grow on flat surfaces. Okay, now I'm going to attempt, oh yeah, that worked. I'm going to put a couple of hole punches in so that I can zip tie the post to the outside pot. So one over there. I think I'll zip tie it to the bottom. In terms of keeping this moss pole damp enough, which is kind of like something I've had trouble with on other moss poles that are on different types of plants, I haven't found this one to be much of a problem. I think I've only hosed it down maybe once every week and a half to 2 weeks because it started to dry out. But what I did is I made sure that a little piece of sphagnum kind of ran all the way to the bottom of the pot, so that little bit of sphagnum at the bottom actually touches the water that sits in the dish at the bottom, and I think that's what's allowing the sphagnum to kind of wick the moisture up the moss towards the top, more so than what would happen for different plants that don't like to be as damp as this one. So it's kind of a really good setup and I'm really happy with it, and I think it should be pretty easy to extend it longer if I want to, but kind of my plan is to put some on some solid flat surfaces just to see how they grow differently, because I like to try different things. So yeah, also I did zip tie the front and the back together in a couple places just to stop it flopping open. So I use just cheap stockings. I think I bought them from Big W to tie up most of my plants because they last really well and they don't go moldy like normal fabric would, and they're really cheap. I think a pack of like, maybe there was 2 or 4 in a pack and it was under $5, and they go a long way. They're nice and soft and stretchy, so they're not going to damage any of your plant stems. They're really versatile. I reuse them in my veggie garden as well as for my plants. You can just chuck them through the wash as well if you're so inclined to wash them between reuses. I don't because I'm lazy, but that's probably a good way to spread like fungal infections between plants. So I guess that's my own fault if I end up doing that, right? There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to put some zip ties on the top so that I can hang it in a little tub of water. You could also put a stake up the back of it or inside of it if you wanted to have it freestanding. So there we go. That is how I made a vertical flat grow pole for my Rhaphidophora cryptantha. It's been a couple weeks since I made this moss pole for my Rhaphidophora cryptantha, and he's settling in really well. As you can see, I have him sitting in about 1 centimeter to 2 centimeters of water at all times, and he's pretty firmly attached onto the moss there. So this top part here is definitely grown. I'm not sure, maybe that leaf has as well. And then this top part up here has definitely grown since he's been attached to the moss. So here's the new little growth that was not there at all beforehand. I don't know where he thinks he's going, straight into the moss by the looks of it. And then up here you can see one of the growths going along pretty happily. And then the other one up here. So I'm really happy with how this is going, and I'm gonna keep him at least on this until he reaches the top and then maybe propagates. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope this helps. See you guys in the next one.